Right, so the events in the West Bank are right now amongst the bleakest going in the Middle East, with not only further atrocities being meted out against the people of Palestine there at the hands of Israel, but equally at the hands of their own supposed government and the Palestinian Authority. Palestinians on Palestinians, as has been the case. Certainly that has been the case around the refugee camps of Jenin and Tulkarem, little left of either. The West Bank is burning, homes are being demolished, families are being forced from their land. And the world is, just as it did with Gaza, just sitting there and watching and twiddling their thumbs. Our leaders doing nothing, or worse, siding with the aggressors against the oppressed. What's happening right now is in the occupied West Bank is the largest displacement of Palestinians seen since 1967. That is the statement being widely reported today. That is the scale of the crisis there now, where Israel have carried out a systematic campaign that violates international law and human rights, seemingly to keep themselves busy whilst the ceasefire in Gaza still holds. Such is their deep contempt for the Palestinians and the sway held in Netanyahu's government by the hard-right settler movement-backed politicians he is in coalition with. A crisis of this scale demands the world's attention, and it doesn't seem to be getting it. Right, so reports are now that Israel's campaign of terror and genocide in the West Bank has now forcibly displaced more Palestinians than at any time since the 1967 Six-Day War, when Palestine fell under Israeli occupation and has remained there ever since. Entire communities are being uprooted, thousands are being forced to flee their homes. In Tulkarem, for example, Israeli forces have wiped out critical infrastructure, leaving civilians without access to water or electricity or medical care, in echoes of the early days of Gaza after October 7th. And as much as Israel may cling to claims that this is a military operation, what it really is further war crimes, further genocide, and now it is officially a record-breaking humanitarian catastrophe. The media committee in Jenin camp put this further into perspective with a statement they've issued, reading, "The Israeli occupation's aggression against Jenin and its camp continues for the 27th day, resulting in the martyrdom of 25 citizens, the displacement of more than 20,000 people, and the destruction of infrastructure and homes. The aggression has led to a severe humanitarian crisis with more than 470 establishments and homes destroyed, essential services halted, water and electricity cut off, and shortages in food supplies. The occupation has deployed military reinforcements to the camp, carried out heavy shelling, and fired live ammunition near the Tiger station. The occupation is preventing water from reaching 4 hospitals in Jenin, depriving 35% of the residents of water. More than 150 citizens have been arrested, 153 raids have been carried out, and 14 airstrikes have been executed. The occupation forces destroyed the home of martyr Amjad al-Fayed and the home of his martyr uncles in the camp." Let's put this into further perspective. Put yourself in the shoes of these people for a moment. Imagine waking up one day to the sound of bulldozers and soldiers at your door. You're given minutes to gather all of your belongings and get out before your home gets reduced to rubble by the people who've turned up in the heavy plant machinery. How would you feel? How would you react to it? But this is the reality for Palestinians in the West Bank right now, as it was for the people of Gaza before. And it's not just about losing a house, because houses can be rebuilt. It's about losing a community, a history, a future. That's what's sought to be erased here. Look at those who have returned to northern Gaza as another for instance. Reports there of people collapsing when they see what has become of their former neighbourhoods because they've gone. Because all that is left is a flat landscape where some cannot even picture where exactly they once lived, because every standing structure and landmark has been erased. It's erasure of a people, of a culture, of a history. And our leaders are standing by and letting it happen. Really, true evil, the likes of which we thought were consigned to the history books, yet here it is, happening all over again, and playing out live before us across social media. What Israel is doing in the West Bank isn't just morally wrong, it's illegal. And frankly, standing by and watching whilst doing nothing, as too many pro-Israel leaders intentionally are doing, should be as well. Under international law, specifically the Fourth Geneva Convention, an occupying power is prohibited from forcibly transferring civilians or destroying property unless absolutely necessary for military operations, and there is no such necessity here. Yet Israel's actions in the West Bank blatantly violate these principles that they are signed up to, and nothing is ever done to bring them to book. There is also no ignoring the fact that the West Bank is occupied territory. Israel has no legal right to displace Palestinians or build settlements on their land. All of that is illegal. And yet that is exactly what is happening yet again, as it has for decades now. And we also know why it is happening. In order to get the hard right of his coalition on side, the Trump demanded ceasefire in Gaza. Netanyahu had to promise further expansionism for settlers in the West Bank. Therefore, what is happening here and now is entirely an exercise in keeping Netanyahu in post, and also shows why phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire won't happen as well. But just like we've seen in northern Gaza particularly, this is another erasure of Palestinian life, and all a blatant violation of international law, as well as a blatant violation of all basic human rights. But for the events in the West Bank to now be the largest since the 1967 Six-Day War really should be a shock and a wake-up call to the world. The human cost of this displacement is staggering. Families are torn apart. Children are left to grow up in the refugee camps if they get to grow up at all. Their futures are more than uncertain, and we know that now better than ever before, having witnessed the atrocities Israel has committed these last 16 months, primarily in Gaza, but now in the West Bank as well. And for those still left, life is a daily struggle. In Jenin, for example, Israeli forces have imposed a military siege, cutting off access to essential supplies and to medical care. They are completely isolated, exactly as we saw Israel do in Gaza. It really is Gaza 2.0 in the West Bank now. And just like Gaza, there is no end in sight either. Israel claims they plan to continue this siege indefinitely, effectively turning the camp into another open-air prison, just like the Gaza Strip. These are people, mothers, fathers, children, who are being punished simply for existing on land that belongs to them, that Israel wants. And it's not just about physical displacement. There's the psychological toll of living under constant fear, of seeing your homes destroyed, of wondering if you'll ever be able to return, allowed to return, and of never being free. This is the reality for Palestinians in the West Bank and in Gaza. It has been their reality for decades, and it has been ignored for too long. But it is worse now than ever under Netanyahu's despotic regime, where really he is under the control of the settler movement, and indeed it is for them all of this land in the West Bank is being seized for. Since 1967, Israel has systematically expanded its control over Palestinian land, building illegal settlements and displacing thousands of people, and now even more settlements are being granted planning permission on land they have no right to allocate to it. All just one more piece in the puzzle that adds up to the ideology of Greater Israel. This is not just about the land, though, and who controls it, but it is a show of power at the same time. It's about erasing Palestinian identity in history, wiping them from the face of the earth. It's about sending a message to the world that we are Israel, and we are the chosen ones, and that Israel can act with impunity regardless of international law or human rights, because they don't apply to us. They only apply to you, and if you don't agree, then you're an anti-Semite. World leaders on the whole are too in hoc to the Israel lobby. There's too much money awash. We're too afraid of them to stand up to such blatant terrorism and atrocity, afraid of being called names, called racist, or losing that funding they were too foolish to take, becoming bought and paid for as a result. Little more paid than lip service won't help the people of Palestine. We need Israel to be held to account properly, as any other nation would be. We need to demand an end to the displacement, the sieges and the violence, and we need to stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people who have been fighting for their rights for decades, because silence is complicity and we cannot afford to be complicit in this injustice. If our leaders and our media won't talk about it, then we must find other sources of information that do. We need to take responsibility for educating ourselves, in which case, and others about what is happening in the West Bank. So share this video, not to blow my own trumpet, but it's a start. Talk about it with your friends and family. Pressure your representatives to demand our governments take action. If we all do something, it all raises more awareness that isn't getting raised already. That needs raising. And meanwhile, if you want some proof that raising awareness really does work, soldiers in the IDF are getting recognised when they go on holiday, thanks to their foolish habit of posting pictures and video of themselves online committing heinous acts. And more of them are facing arrest abroad as a result of it. So if you want a little bit of cheering up after this video, then the video recommendation here will help to do that, I'm sure. Please do also hit like, share and subscribe before you go, though, so as to ensure you don't miss out on all new daily content, and help support the channel at the same time as that does, which is enormously appreciated. And I will hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.